One like on this video is plus 1000 damage for Monkey. All right, so we got some insane new buffs as well as some insane new units in All-Star Tower Defense. And let's just say the damage meta has gotten wild. So today we're going to be doing the best DPS damage units in the game. All right, basically what units kill like those enemies the fastest. All right, this is not for damage leaderboard grinds. That's gonna be a separate video for the best damage nukes units in the game. All right, so let's get it started with number 15 through number 10. Well, also guys, I'll link my spreadsheet down below if you want to see all of the calculations. Here we go. All right, so starting off with number 15, we have Yami, guys, after his buff. So if you guys don't know what his buff does, I'll show it to you real quick. It's kind of, you know, some good things and some bad things. So the bad thing about it is now he is a unique unit. You're going to see there can only be one placement, which is a little bit sad. But on the positive side, let's just say his damage went absolutely wild. 41 million damage without any buffs. But remember, he is affected by the DOT nerf. So effectively, his Black Flames damage is about 10 million. And of course, subtract the 15% category buff or don't, depending on, you know, what team you're using. And this gets his DPS all the way up to 42 million once we add in the buff as well. And the buff will take him all the way up to, let's see here, 164. So 42 million factoring in Black Flames. But remember, Black Flames hits 21 times. So he's doing he's doing about 1 billion damage over 40 seconds, which is absolutely wild. All right, so the next unit we got is Goku Instinct. Ultra Instinct Sign. Now this guy's actually pretty low on the list, so I'm kind of surprised he's at number 14. You can see his damage is really good. However, this calculation doesn't factor in his ability or ascension. So if you guys factor in those, he's definitely a little bit higher on the list. But his DPS is only 42.5 million, so very, very slightly more than Yami. But the thing about him is he's full AoE, so I would always bring him over Yami. Plus he has that nuke as well, so he's honestly one of the way better, but he is a lot more pricey though. All right, about 2 million more. All right, next up, at slightly, there's actually a pretty big jump here between Goku UI Sign and Madara. There's a 7 million damage gap between the two, but a lot of that is due to the fact that, you know, we're not really counting Goku's abilities. So this guy does 111 million for 9, so you guys can compare that to these other units. Like, you can see why he's up here on the list. Throw off that buff, 446 for 9, bringing his DPS to 49 million, which is absolutely wild. Now, only slightly better than Madara, we have the one and only Zoro. But remember, for Zoro, purple Zoro, I guess now. Honestly, he low-key looks good in purple. I'm not gonna lie. This is factoring in his bleed, but look at the stats, guys. 46.79, and that's without any buffs, guys. No leader buff compared to Yami. So this is actually absolutely great. And his stats are wild. 187 with bleed, and bleed is very, very good. But remember, he's affected by the DOT nerf, so it's not like as insane as you would expect. But some really, really good DPS, and he's also hybrid as well, unlike Yami. So a great unit, but surprisingly, this one might shock you. At more DPS than Madara, and more DPS than Goku. At number 12 number 11 on this list, we have Cell. Yes, guys, I know. Cell is an 8 placement unit, and his damn DPS goes pretty high with that damage. So here we go. Looking good. 12.7 for 8. Now remember, you have to multiply this by 8. So he's doing 12 million DPS without the buff. 12.7 million DPS. So factoring all that over, he's doing 50.8 million DPS. All right. So you can see how he kind of, if you multiply this by 8, it goes over all of these units. So this guy's actually kind of a secretly good unit. But remember, you're not getting this AoE though. So I personally would probably go with Madara because that AoE is will way make up for that like 1 million damage difference in DPS. So let's just say, if you got this guy from Battle Road back in the day, definitely might be worth a shot for you to try him out. All right, let's go back to the top 10 now. Here we go. All right, here we go, guys. So also surprisingly low on this list, at number 10, we have Gilgamesh. Yeah, I bet you guys are shocked, man. I thought it'd be like number 1 or something, but they actually nerfed Gilgamesh's damage quite a bit. So he only has 51 million DPS now, factoring in the buff. And that is the reason why he is so freaking low on this list. Look at this, guys. 737 for 12. Now, he does have the passive on him, category buff. That's why it's a little bit skewed higher. But yeah, only 51 million damage. Just slightly more than Cell, and slightly, just like a little bit more than Madara, about like 4%ish, but more than Madara. So they're both still pretty good. He does have a Numa reduction, which is pretty good, nuke ability. So a great unit overall, and some pretty sick effects as well. And of course, hits airs. So not bad at all. Next up, we have Benimaru. Now, I don't personally have Benimaru. So I'm just going to bring his definitely not friend here. Fireboy. So I'll show you Benimaru's stats real quick. Benimaru is number 9. And no, not this Benimaru. This Benimaru, guys. All right. He has some pretty sweet flame DPS. And you can kind of see it right here, guys. Look at this. 58 million damage. 13 SPA. Pretty freaking sweet. And that's with no buffs. I have him clocking in at 51.7 million DPS. So slightly more than Gilgamesh. So clocking it at 52.7. So just again, it's like just really slightly more than Gilgamesh. We have Boros. All right, now the thing about Boros is he is honestly, I think he's actually cheaper than Gilgamesh. Dang. So yeah, Boros is surprisingly cheap now compared to these other units, but he does have more DPS. Because where's AoE? You can kind of see his AoE. So he's doing 158 for 12 versus one. Okay, well, because he gets the 20% buff, but normally Boros has that slight edge, but it's only a very slight edge. And then with the buffs, etc., you got 737 for 12 versus 633 for 12. But you have to subtract 20% from this. So he really should be about 589, in the rough range of 589 compared to 633. So like, it's just a very slight difference. But personally, but he's also a lot cheaper as well. So it depends if you want this AoE or this AoE, and if you want to save a little bit of extra money. So slightly higher than Boros at 54 million DPS. So honestly, a bigger jump than between these two. We have Kirito. Now, Kirito is also a little bit more expensive than Boros. Now, it used to be the opposite, but he is cheaper than Gilgamesh. And you can kind of see the damage. Now, it looks low, but that's because Kirito has crit, which almost doubles his DPS. So you can kind of calculate that in the calculation there. So it looks low, but you basically double it for crit mechanic. And Kirito also does hit airs as well. And has some pretty nice AoE. Honestly, he might even have better than Boros AoE. So I definitely think Kirito has the edge. But they did raise his cost. So maybe not as much of an edge as he used to. And then slightly better than Kirito with just a hair more damage at 54.9 million DPS. We have Natsu. And that's factoring in Rainbow Flame Surge. So that takes him up to 54.3 with the 13 SPA. And then, of course, you buff him as well. 217 for 13. And burn. And he is affected by the DOT nerf, though. So each burn tick is only like 50 million, roughly. So keep that in consideration. But I have him clocking in at 54.9 or roughly 55 million DPS. So here we go. Now let's go up to the big boys. All right, so this is when things start to get quite insane. So here we go. So first up, yeah, I don't know if this is a mistake or what, but according to the wiki, Lucky Green's new buff made him an absolute beast. Now, unfortunately, I can't really show you because it's factoring in his rage damage. But apparently, this guy is now doing 60 million maximum buff DPS. So I guess we can see how accurate that is, but that is what the wiki says. So here we go. 14.8 for 5, so 3 million DPS each. Double that. I don't know, man. I don't know. That's what the wiki says. I ain't gonna lie. So that's what we gotta go with. But it's looking a little bit sketchy to me, but somehow, some way, this guy made it up there after the buff. Yeah, I don't know, man. I haven't calculated in at like 60 million DPS, which is wild. But I guess it kind of makes sense because if you take a look at his AoE, it is very small. So a high DPS would make sense. But he's also kind of a Gale Slow unit. So maybe they're trying to bring Gale Slow back to the meta. Anyways, next up at number 4, we have Dazai, but only when calculating him with his special abilities. So he actually has some pretty good DPS here. But remember, he does double damage to units that he needs to nullify. For example, all of these different types. So I know it is kind of a special case, but 63.9. You see, look at that. He does double damage. So he actually is really good. But only on decelerates, armors, powerfuls, etc. So take that into account. And without that, he's doing half the DPS, so he's kind of mid. But he does have Fall Man as well, so he is also a support unit. So don't sleep on him. Next up, we have Dazai. Yeah, I mean Patch Face after Dazai. 50.3 million. And then, of course, we have an Instant Spirit buff as well, which takes him to 80.6. And he just gets absolutely ridiculous, guys. 80.6 million DPS for 7. Like, you can kind of see where we're going with this. Like, this guy turns into an absolute beast. Like, it's absolutely insane. So, Patch Face, don't sleep on his DPS. However, it kind of makes sense considering he's going to cost you 2 of your firstborn sons, as well as your right pinky toe to get him. Because let's just say we need a new money unit now, because this is freaking ridiculous. Jeez. And then at number 2, we have Ichigo. But the problem with Ichigo is only on air units. You can see his awakening ability with black flames, but this only is for air units because he doesn't hit other units otherwise. So he's kind of a special case. But thankfully, he's no longer number 1. We have a Blood Queen at number 1. Now, this is without her passive ability. So without her passive ability, I have her clocking at 132 million DPS, which is absolutely insane with max buff, etc. Yeah, let's just say she is an absolute, like, freaking weapon. Like, it is busted. Let me double check this, though. Yeah, she's an absolute weapon. 388 million damage with a 25 SPA. Absolute weapon, man. Oh, my goodness gracious. Now, unfortunately, I don't have the orb for her yet, so it doesn't look that good. But you can kind of see even her stats without, like, the buff or max level are still pretty good. Look at that. Let me go show you guys a couple of the special units that you guys might have missed on the list and the reason I took them off. So there's a couple units I don't have on this list, and that is Kefla and Jiren. I don't have Kefla on the list because she requires 2 units to place, so it's kind of weird to calculate that, but normally she would be pretty close to the top, like top 5. Same with Jiren. The reason I don't have Jiren on the list is the wiki stats for Jiren aren't really that accurate, so it's even harder for me to calculate his DPS. But he's definitely in like the top 5, but he has a really bad AoE. So these 2 are really good, but they require like special circumstances, a lot like these units like Dazai and Ichigo. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know if I missed anything, and if you want to help me with my my list, let me know, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.